When it comes to consistency and achievement and accomplishment, I would say Edwin ranks number one. There will never be another one like him.
Edwin, to me, has been and always will be probably the most prominent sports figure in USA track and field.
He was a very fluent runner. It looked effortless.
He was strong. He had the ability. He had the foot stride, the capability. I mean, he was awesome.
I do think that for Edwin it was a little bit man against boys. I think he was ahead of his time. He was the best in the world. He was peerless, but you could tell that he was on another stratosphere.
I guess over the years when Edwin ran, he dominated the event for such a long time. It was kind of like, well, whoever's in the race with him, they're running for second place.
It's huge, a huge impact. I mean, Edwin was the beginning and the end of 400 hurdles for a decade.
The 400-meter hurdles, or intermediate hurdles, is often called the man-killer event. It requires more discipline, more tactical awareness, and more physical endurance than any other sprint event.
The hurdles are spaced out every 35 metres, and anything can happen in those 35 metres.
A 400-metre hurdler has got to equate the number of strides to the level of fatigue that they're in.
So you need rhythm, spatial awareness, and a special kind of commitment to stick to the plan.
You have to have, in my opinion, the strength of a half-miler. You have to have that kind of endurance. You have to have the speed of a 400-meter runner, and you have to have the flexibility of a short hurdler. So all those things combined go into making a good 400 hurdler.
One man combined these attributes better than any other athlete in the history of the intermediate hurdles. For almost a decade, Edwin Moses reigned supreme. For almost a decade, he never lost a race.
9 years, 9 months, and 9 days. I went undefeated, and it was a day-by-day and a year-by-year scene.
I mean, I love the symmetry of life. 9 years, 9 months, 9 days, undefeated. Took on all comers. Come and have a go if you think you're good enough. None were. It's a phenomenal testimony to a great man.
To have 10 years unbeaten in any sport is, I think, pretty unique.
You don't win 122 races over 10 years by happenstance. You have to have something special, and he had it. He had the right physique, he had the right time in history, he had the attitude, he had the wherewithal, and he had the heart.
Tall, languid, elegant, Moses' style was unmistakable. Born in Dayton, Ohio in 1955, the greatest hurdler in history was initially more focused on school than sport.
I tried a lot of different sports like every other kid, and I was never earmarked to be a great athlete because I was always one of the smaller kids at the time.
In 1973, he received an academic scholarship to move to Atlanta, where he studied physics at Morehouse College. But it wasn't long before the science student found his true calling.
Track and field is an event where you have to continually climb to the top, and no matter what age group or level you're at. If you're running track in high school, you start out at the bottom of the heap, and you have to perform your way to the top. And then when you get to the top of that level, you find out there's a whole different level of other people. You have to start back down at the bottom. So you're constantly going up and going down. And for those of us who become world-class athletes, eventually we get to the point where we can handle, the top players out there. And it took me from the age of 11 until 20 years old before I got there.
Moses only began running the 400 hurdles in 1975, yet he created an instant stir as the 1976 Olympics drew closer.
As we were going along and during the season, I started to hear about this kid from back east dropping times, and we were like, who is this kid? And it's like his name was Edwin Moses. And then all of a sudden, Edwin wasn't considered the dark horse anymore. Edwin was one of the kind of people you had to worry about trying to beat. Once he got through that Olympic trials going into '76, and I saw him, I just got, there's no way that this kid could maintain that.
But Moses was able to maintain his form. With his trademark glasses and graceful running style, he became one of the stars at Montreal.
Edwin was almost like the Nutty Professor, wearing those glasses, had his little beads around his neck and everything. And you just look at him and go like, I can't believe this kid has this much potential.
That potential was realized in the Olympic final.
I was confident that I was trained better than everybody. I knew that I could win the race. And during the Olympic Games, fortunately for me, I didn't really get caught up in being at the Olympics. I was so seriously into the competition. I went out and did what I needed to do.
Moses led from the front, finishing way ahead of second-placed Mike Shine. He won his first Olympic gold medal, and he also set a new world record. A star was born.
Here's this kid, 21-year-old kid come out of Morehouse, and runs 47 and change and sets a world record. It blows everybody's mind.
He was just unbeatable at that time.
Ed Moses' rise was no accident. The self-coached science student made his sport into a science itself. The formula was simple: to cover the 400 meters in fewer strides than anyone else.
To take 13 steps is approximately 9 feet and 9 inches for each stride, and there's a lot of intermediate hurdlers that can take it for maybe 5 or 6 hurdles. But once you go into the second turn, then it really gets difficult to keep your stride to that length. So far, I'm the only one who's consistently maintained 13.
Edwin's 13 steps, I think, was born out of just his physical makeup. He's about 6'3", 6'3 and a half, 170 pounds with an 8-foot stride. You vet that out, and it comes out to a 13-step pattern through 10 hurdles.
Edwin was able to do 13s with ease right to hurdle 10. So that's where he would get his difference. In the first 5 hurdles, all things being equal, we could all have the same stride pattern, bang, 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 1, 2, bang, 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 bosh, no worries. It's then in the change down.
And there was, of course, where his advantage was, the second turn and coming home, where he can maintain his stride and maintain the flow and the rhythm, where the rest of us had to change strides.
He was calculating, and he was consistent. And one thing Edwin figured out very early on within his race was, if I go out and do 13 strides each and every time, I'm going to win the race, because no one else was doing it. Moses wrote the commandments: if you got to run 13 or better.
It worked for me. The next guy in the next lane could run 13 steps and it wouldn't be effective for him. So it's all a matter of, how you train, your body type, whether or not you're going to run faster using 13 steps or 14. But for me, it worked.
It worked so well that Moses kept on winning. Race after race, year after year, nobody got close.
Well, I guess there are maybe 3 Americans, and there's an East German and a West German that are top competitors right now. But I guess if they were all put in the race, then it would be no way of telling who was going to win. Mm-hmm. So actually, I'm still out by myself.
In the run-up to the 1980 Olympic Games, Moses had proved himself peerless in his event. But the Games were to be staged in Moscow, enemy territory as far as the American authorities were concerned during the Cold War.
I'm trying to gear down and then gear back up for the Olympics in 1980. Or maybe there could be a better location, but I'm going to go in and try to make the best of it myself. Try to come out with another gold.
There was to be no gold, however. The USA decided to boycott the Olympics, and Moses' dreams of glory were dashed. East German Volker Beck, constantly and also ran against Moses, took gold. Moses' response was simple. Instead of training to win medals, he now trained to run fast. His dedication to hard work was unrivaled.
My academic background is in science, so athletics was a hobby of mine. I was never really going to be a coach. I wasn't interested in coaching. The only person I've ever coached was myself because I did most of the groundwork myself.
He was very, very, very careful on his preparations, and he lived the sport. Whereas other people coming and went, he was living and breathing it every day.
All kinds of running, cross-country running, in the grass, at the beach, physical therapy, lifting weights, swimming pool, running on the track, about 7 or 8 different elements.
He came early in the morning and he had his routine, and he was rigorous, and he was always prepared to do the hard work off the track. And not everybody was doing that. And I think that was part of the secret with him as well.
Even then, he was looking at it in a scientific way. He would wear a heart monitor and he could assess where the hills were and what the pulse rate had gone to. So he was a very thoughtful racer.
The vigorous training regime worked. Moses smashed the world record in the 1976 Olympics and twice more in 77 and 80. He broke it again for a final time in 1983, almost becoming the first man to run under 47 seconds.
Even beyond gold medals, world records are the most important thing. Because as an athlete, you don't run to win medals, you run to better yourself. And you run against the clock. If you set a world record, a standard, that no human has ever done before, there's nothing more you can do in your sport except for reset that record.
I was able to break the world record on 4 different occasions, which is a very high number for a running event. Hardly anyone does that. So, I ran 4 world records, which were all great performances, and I ran a couple of track meets in which I probably could have run way faster than I did running any of the records, and just didn't on those days.
By 1983, he was the holder of the 6 fastest times in hurdles history. The disappointment of Moscow 1980 was behind him. Moses won the inaugural World Championships in August '83. He had revolutionized his event.
All of a sudden, this person comes along and he changed the whole outlook of the event.
I think he was just better than the rest of us, and he had that advantage of the strides and the rhythm, but also he was an exceptional athlete. So he could run 47.5, even though he didn't make a perfect race, whereas the rest of us had to run a perfect race to run 47.5.
But after World Championship glory and 4 world records came the next big test. The 8-year wait to win another Olympic gold was nearly over, and the 1984 Games would be held in Los Angeles, a stone's throw from where he trained.
The Olympics in LA was a really big event.
This time there's much more fanfare. People expect me to win. My name has been around. I've been getting a lot of publicity for the last 3 years and building up for the Olympic Games. So I think the expectation is that everyone likes me to win, and for me, I have to go out and do it.
Well, then Moses was an icon, obviously, because not only was he American and the Olympics was in America, but he had that unbeaten streak, and he couldn't compete in 1980 because of the boycott.
He was not only an icon, but also an elder statesman, now captain of the US Olympic team.
Representing the United States Olympic team, Edwin Moses.
I think the Olympics in LA, the build-up and also the platform he had there, and also being from Irvine, he lived next door. Of course, that was, it was a great venue for him.
In the name of the athletes, I promise that we shall take part in the Olympic Games, respecting and abiding by the rules that govern them.
The US captain cruised to wins in his heat and semi-final, but now he faced genuine competition in the shape of an American rookie, Danny House.
Seeing him that first time, seeing him leave the blocks with tremendous amount of power, so much that the blocks rattled. As an 18-year-old kid, I thought to myself, what am I going to do with that? How do you combat that? He's running his first 200 meters as if there aren't any hurdles there.
While the world held its breath for the final, the favourite could not have been more cool.
He just mesmerised everybody. Everyone else was frankly getting warmed up. He used to lay down there, listen to his music, chill out. So you look at this guy, you know, it's the Olympics soon, son. What, you know, when are you going to get ready? He was just one of those guys who you looked at and you knew was in command of his territory.